Flores v. Jaclyn. Facts: the constitutionality of Sector 13, PAR of RA 7227, otherwise known as the Bases Conversion and Development Act of 1992, under which Mayor Richard J. Gordon of Olongapo City was appointed Chairman and Chief Executive Officer of the Subic Bay Metropolitan Authority, is challenged in this original petition with prayer for prohibition, preliminary injunction, and temporary restraining order. Under said provision, for the first year of its operations from the effectivity of this act, the Mayor of the City of Olongapo shall be appointed as the Chairman and Chief Executive Officer of the Subic Authority. Petitioners, as taxpayers, contend that said provision is unconstitutional as under the following constitutional and statutory provisions: Sector 7, 1st PAR, Art. IXB, of the Constitution, which states that no elective official shall be eligible for appointment or designation in any capacity to any public officer or position during his tenure. Because the City Mayor of Olongapo City is an elective official and the subject posts are public offices, Sector 16, Art. 7, of the Constitution, which provides that he President shall appoint all other officers of the government whose appointments are not otherwise provided for by law, and those whom he may be authorized by law to appoint. Since it was Congress through the questioned proviso and not the President who appointed the Mayor to the subject posts, and Sector 261, PAR, of the Omnibus Election Code. Issue 1. The proviso in Sector 13, PAR, of RA 7227 violates the constitutional proscription against appointment or designation of elective officials to other government posts. Held yes ratio. The rule expresses the policy against the concentration of several public positions in one person, so that a public officer or employee may serve full-time with dedication and thus be efficient in the delivery of public services. It is an affirmation that a public office is a full-time job. Hence, a public officer or employee, like the head of an executive department described in Civil Liberties Union v. Executive Secretary, GR number 83896, and Anti-Graft League of the Philippines, Inc. v. Philip Ella C. Jhojo, as Secretary of Agrarian Reform, GR number 83815, should be allowed to attend to his duties and responsibilities without the distraction of other governmental duties or employment. He should be precluded from dissipating his efforts, attention, and energy among too many positions of responsibility, which may result in haphazardness and inefficiency. In the case before us, the subject proviso directs the President to appoint an elective official, i.e., the Mayor of Olongapo City, to other government posts. Since this is precisely what the constitutional proscription seeks to prevent, it needs no stretching of the imagination to conclude that the proviso contravenes Sector 7, 1st PAR, Art. IXB, of the Constitution. Here, the fact that the expertise of an elective official may be most beneficial to the higher interest of the body politic is of no moment. It is argued that Sections 94 of the LGC permits the appointment of a local elective official to another post if so allowed by law or by the primary functions of his office. But, the contention is fallacious. Section 94 of the LGC is not determinative of the constitutionality of Sector 13, PAR, of RA 7227, for no legislative act can prevail over the fundamental law of the land. Moreover, since the constitutionality of Sections 94 of LGC is not the issue here nor is that section sought to be declared unconstitutional, we need not rule on its validity. Neither can we invoke a practice otherwise unconstitutional as authority for its validity. In any case, the view that an elective official may be appointed to another post if allowed by law or by the primary functions of his office ignores the clear-cut difference in the wording of the two paragraphs of Sector 7, Art. IXB, of the Constitution, while the second paragraph authorizes holding of multiple offices by an appointive official when allowed by law or by the primary functions of his position. The first paragraph appears to be more stringent by not providing any exception to the rule against appointment or designation of an elective official to the government post, except as are particularly recognized in the Constitution itself, e.g. the President as head of the Economic and Planning Agency, the Vice President, who may be appointed member of the Cabinet, and a member of Congress who may be designated ex officio member of the Judicial and Bar Council. It is further argued that the SBMA posts are merely ex officio to the position of Mayor of Olongapo City, hence, an accepted circumstance, citing Civil Liberties Union v. Executive Secretary, where we stated that the prohibition against the holding of any other office or employment by the President, Vice President, members of the Cabinet, and their deputies or assistants during their tenure, as provided in Sector 13, Art. 7, of the Constitution, does not comprehend additional duties and functions required by the primary functions of the officials concerned, who are to perform them in an ex officio capacity as provided by law, without receiving any additional compensation therefore. This argument is apparently based on a wrong premise. Congress did not contemplate making the subject SBMA posts as ex officio or automatically attached to the office of the Mayor of Olongapo City without need of appointment. The phrase "shall be appointed" unquestionably shows the intent to make the SBMA posts appointive and not merely adjunct to the post of Mayor of Olongapo City. Had it been the legislative intent to make the subject positions ex officio, Congress would have, at least, avoided the word appointed. And, instead, ex officio would have been used. Even in the Senate deliberations, the senators were fully aware that subject proviso may contravene Sector 7, First PAR, Art. IXB, but they nevertheless passed the bill and decided to have the controversy resolved by the courts. Indeed, the senators would not have been concerned with the effects of Sector 7, First PAR, had they considered the SBMA posts as ex officio. Cognizant of the complication that may arise from the way the subject proviso was stated, Senator Rene Seguisig remarked that if the conference committee just said the mayor shall be the chairman, then that should foreclose the issue. It is a legislative choice. The senator took a view that the constitutional proscription against appointment of elective officials may have been sidestepped if Congress attached the SBMA posts to the mayor of Olongapo City instead of directing the president to appoint him to the post. Without passing upon this view of Senator Seguisig, it suffices to state that Congress intended the posts to be appointive, thus nibbling in the bud the argument that they are ex officio. Petitioners also assail the legislative encroachment on the appointing authority of the President. Section 13, PAR, itself vests in the President the power to appoint the Chairman of the Board and the Chief Executive Officer of SBMA, although he really has no choice under the law but to appoint the Mayor of Olongapo City. As may be defined, an appointment is he designation of a person, by the person or persons having authority therefore, to discharge the duties of some office or trust, or he selection or designation of a person, by the person or persons having authority therefore, to fill an office or public function and discharge the duties of the same. In his treatise, Philippine Political Law, Senior Associate Justice Isagan A. Cruz defines appointment as the selection, by the authority vested with the power, of an individual who is to exercise the functions of a given office. Considering that appointment calls for a selection, the appointing power necessarily exercises a discretion. Indeed, the power of choice is the heart of the power to appoint. Appointment involves an exercise of discretion of whom to appoint. It is not a ministerial act of issuing appointment papers to the appointee. In other words, the choice of the appointee is a fundamental component of the appointing power. Hence, when Congress clothes the President with the power to appoint an officer, it cannot at the same time limit the choice of the President to only one candidate. Once the power of appointment is conferred on the President, such conferment necessarily carries the discretion of whom to appoint. Even on the pretext of prescribing the qualifications of the officer, Congress may not abuse such power as to divest the appointing authority, directly or indirectly, of his discretion to pick his own choice. Consequently, when the qualifications prescribed by Congress can only be met by one individual, such enactment effectively eliminates the discretion of the appointing power to choose and constitutes an irregular restriction on the power of appointment. In the case at bar, while Congress willed that the subject posts be filled with a presidential appointee for the first year of its operations from the effectivity of R.A. 7227, the proviso nevertheless limits the appointing authority to only one eligible, i.e., the incumbent mayor of a Longapo city. Since only one can qualify for the posts in question, the president is precluded from exercising his discretion to choose whom to appoint. Such supposed power of appointment, sans the essential element of choice, is no power at all and goes against the very nature itself of appointment. While it may be viewed that the proviso merely sets the qualifications of the officer during the first year of operations of SBMA, i.e., he must be the mayor of a Longapo city, it is manifestly an abuse of congressional authority to prescribe qualifications where only one, and no other, can qualify. Where, as in the case of Gordon, an incumbent elective official was, notwithstanding his ineligibility, appointed to other government posts, he does not automatically forfeit his elective office nor remove his ineligibility imposed by the Constitution. On the contrary, since an incumbent elective official is not eligible to the appointive position, his appointment or designation thereto cannot be valid in view of his disqualification or lack of eligibility. As incumbent elective official, Respondent Gordon is ineligible for appointment to the position of Chairman of the Board and Chief Executive of SBMA, hence, his appointment thereto pursuant to a legislative act that contravenes the Constitution cannot be sustained. He however remains mayor of a Longapo city, and his acts as SBMA official are not necessarily null and void. He may be considered a de facto officer, one whose acts, though not those of a lawful officer, the law, upon principles of policy and justice, will hold valid so far as they involve the interest of the public and third persons, where the duties of the office were exercised under color of a known election or appointment, void because the officer was not eligible, or because there was a want of power in the electing or appointing body, or by reason of some defect or irregularity in its exercise. Such ineligibility, want of power or defect being unknown to the public, under color of an election, or appointment, by or pursuant to a public unconstitutional law, before the same is adjudged to be such.